Hello, good evening, and welcome to Monkeys with Fire. How is everybody tonight? Hope you're all well. Hope you're getting ready for the weekend. So then, you join me on another deep dive of a brand new role-playing game system. This evening, we are going to be taking a look at the Electric State from Free League Publishing. This is a road trip on the verge of reality as we travel across an alternate 90s America. So our thanks to Free League Publishing for providing a copy of the Electric State RPG for us to look at this evening. I guess what we'll do is we will jump straight on in and sort of set the scene, take a look at the back of the book. So here we go. We of course have some amazing artwork on the cover here, and this is very much about the art, but we will we'll delve into that a little bit more detail as we take a look through. So let's take a look at the back. A road trip on the verge of reality. When did it all start? I can't really remember. It started like any recreational activity, I guess, like TV. Sometimes they watched TV and sometimes they would sit there wearing their Neurocasters. I didn't care. It was after the big update of 1996 that things got weird. Weird even. Mode 6. My goodness, it feels like it's already happening to me. The Electric State Role-Playing Game is based on the art book The Electric State by acclaimed visual artist and author Simon Stålenhag. This tabletop RPG uses Free League's Year Zero engine, known for award-winning games such as Mutant Year Zero, Tales from the Loop, Alien, and the Blade Runner RPGs. This is a game about a group of travellers heading out on a journey through a strange America in an alternate 1997. The ruins of gigantic battle drones litter the countryside, heaped together with the discarded trash of a high-tech consumerist society in decline. The game is not about the goal, but the journey, what the characters experience along the way and how it changes them. This is a game of exploration, of finding out who you are, who your friends are, and what you are willing to do when the world collapses around you. And as it points out here, content warning, the Electric State deals with dark and existential themes. The stories told in this game can be violent, distressing, and raise issues relating to personal morals. This is not a game for children. Okay, interesting. So, let's just go back to this amazing front cover. As it did point out, this is a game done by Simon Stålenhag, who was the artist behind Tales from the Loop. And of course, regulars to the channel will know that we were big fans of this game. It is absolutely fantastic, especially given that it is set during the 1980s, which of course is a favourite decade of mine. It's the one that I remember. I think that's the thing, isn't it? We all have a decade that sort of resonates with us, and for me it definitely was the 80s. It's where I learned a little bit about music and played a few video games and read some comic books. It was a great time. So, really enjoyed Tales from the Loop, but let's see how the Electric State does things differently, and yet maybe the same in some instances. Okay, let's jump on in. So, first off, we have this wonderful double-page spread map of, I guess it's California. We have Los Angeles down at the bottom here, San Francisco up in the top. We have the Mojave Desert here. And then we have this area cordoned off the Black Belt exclusion zone. I always like looking at maps when we get introduced to a new game. There's always some little clues to be found here. But of course, this being a road trip style of game, we have, of course, all the major roads and freeways detailed here. We have a naval air force base up at the top here. And the great thing about it is there is a large-sized version of the map included in the game. I think is it one-sided? It is just one-sided. So you can put that out on your table for your players to explore. So let's jump on in. We have our credits here. Again, creator of the Electric State and lead artist, Simon Stålenhag. I am, of course, pronouncing the surnames absolutely incorrect for everybody here, as I always do. Good evening, Roger. You've joined us just in time. We're just starting our exploration of the Electric State role-playing game. So we have our contents, we have an introduction, we have a little bit of info on the state of the area that our players will be existing within. We have character creation, we have combat rules, explanation a little bit about the actual journey, how games are constructed, threats, and then I think Into the Dust is the actual journey example for the new Games Masters. And I think this Lone Traveller is rules for playing solo. I like how Free League have really embraced the solo RPG scene. With a lot of their games, it's either built into their core books, or they do it as an expansion very, very quickly. So really do appreciate that. Of course, because this is a game based on the acclaimed art book, we're going to see just amazing pieces of art as we flick through this. Really, really cool. I like the sort of graphic design here, that it's an idea of it actually being maybe a photograph that's stuck on into a scrapbook of some kind. I think that's quite a novel way of presenting. So we get a little bit of introduction about playing the game, give us a bit of an idea, because of course we've always got to assume that we're going to have new players, and we want to give them an idea of what a role-playing game is like. It does point out safety tools. Of course, we always talk about these, don't we? And having that kind of session zero, where you can just discuss the broad themes of what you're going to include within your game, just to make sure that everybody around the table is happy and comfortable. You don't want to give away too many secrets, but you want to give them a rough idea of kind of what they might encounter. Certainly the ones that might put some players off. And this is giving us a bit of a summary, quick summary of the actual setting. We're going to be talking about 1990s nostalgia. So I think we were talking about this on Tuesday evening, weren't we, Roger? That the 1990s happened, but I find it quite difficult to actually call out anything of significant note. But of course, this is an alternate 1990s. And in fact, the game itself is set in 1997. As it says here, it's an alternate version of the late 1990s. We know from our world the year is 1997, and after a period of great turmoil, civilization is irreversibly crumbling. In the nation of Pacifica, comprising what was once the state of California, people do whatever they can to ignore the slow-moving apocalypse unfolding around them. They also have compelling reasons to avoid dwelling on the past. The decades of conflict and war that led to this downfall aren't something anybody wants to remember. So there was a civil war in America, which tore the USA apart. It commenced in 1975 and concluded in a ceasefire in 1984. In its aftermath, new nations emerged, including Pacifica. So this is the area where our players are going to be journeying. We have the emergence of neuronics. Gonna have to get that right. Neuronics, which developed in the 1960s and evolved rapidly. We'll go into more detail on that as we go through. We then have a breakdown of the various chapters. And then this is the important part. This is the premise of the game, or actually not really the premise. No, actually more the structure. Actually, that's a better description, isn't it? So, as it says here, the GM doesn't need to improvise anything that happens before play. The GM has a written journey consisting of several stops. At each stop, the travellers will, for one reason or another, need to stay for a day or two. At these stops, interesting, strange, and horrible things happen. So before the game begins, the players and the GM decide if they should play a short journey with a handful of stops along the way, a long journey with many stops. And it does go into more detail, and the way that I kind of envisage this is, as it points out here, is that each stop on the map of the area describes its inhabitants and location. We then have encounters that occur between the main stops, and the game is played in scenes like in a movie. So something happens at a location at a stop. When the conversation or actions are finished, the GM cuts the scene, the next scene picks up elsewhere or later. So it very much plays into that sort of movie format as the characters travel on their journey. And I've seen some other games that play in a similar way, but this is the first one that I've actually been able to get hold of and have a bit more of an in-depth look. So I found that interesting. It does mean, of course, that you can cover many, hundreds of miles, I guess, and have a different location and different encounters at those locations, all as a connecting story. I think that's quite cool. So, ending the session, at the end of the session, the travellers may have resolved things, the entire area might be burned to the ground, or you might still be in the middle of the action. In any event, the travellers learn something and get the chance to improve their attributes and acquire new talents. That's pretty much when you wrap up your actual session, isn't it? Of course, you could have an epic road trip. Depends on how your players and the GM want to run things. For example, you could just travel small amounts each session and keep the game going for quite some time, or make it a very long session to try and get to this destination, whatever that might be. Because as it says throughout the game, it's all about the journey more than it is the actual goal, the actual destination. And so, principles of the game, 6 principles. So play to find out. So just as the mind consists of connected neurons in the brain, your story forms by linking things together. The travellers, the destination, the stops, the threats, and the tension among the travellers. Travellers are seekers. They're filled with dreams. Maybe they want a better future, or just find someone to love. They engage in whatever they encounter, interact with people, and try to think of things out. The journey is the goal. Each traveller has their own goal for the journey, but reaching the destination as quickly as possible is not the point of the game. In order to follow your dreams and overcome your flaws and play the game fully, you must interact with people and events you encounter on each of the stops. The world is falling apart. Even though the war is over, Pacifica is about to collapse, or maybe it's already happening. I think there's a lot to be said that it probably is already happening. People are losing their minds and starving. Groups of wanderers enthralled by their neurocasters. We'll touch on this a little bit as we go through, because it is quite a haunting setting that this game portrays. Neuronics are everywhere, so even though the neuronic tech is triggering the downfall of civilization as we know it, no one is free from its reach, not even the travellers. And it is the 90s, but not. The Electric State is set in an alternate version of the 90s, so your game features familiar elements from that time, such as clothes and hairdos, music and movies. But in contrast to this neurotech, which is weird and outlandish. And of course we experienced that with the Tales from the Loop game, and how it blended this amazing technology and yet still had that 1980s feel. People were going around with Walkmans but had anti-grav hover harvesters and amazing sort of technology, but you still got a Sony Walkman. It's quite different. It's weird. So that was the initial introduction. We start to go into more detail now. And of course, this is what is a really, really great read. I always like this about new role-playing games, where it's a world that you know nothing about. You sit yourself down and you immerse yourself in the imagination of the designers of this brand new world that they're going to lay out at your feet. Unlike the likes of popular IPs such as The Lord of the Rings or Star Wars or Star Trek, we've already got a good idea what those worlds are like. This is completely new, very, very interesting, very different. Roger, you're saying the art is always interesting and well done. It is, isn't it? It's absolutely amazing. And it just seems a bit weirder this time. These drones and their sort of character faces and bodies, just a bit weird. Now, I haven't pointed out, and I think I probably should do at this point, that the Electric State is actually being made into a movie, and it will be coming out on Netflix. I believe it's March, middle of March next year. Stars Millie Bobby Brown and Chris Pratt, directed by the Russo brothers of the Avengers fame. So yes, that's going to be interesting. And I like that idea that we're going to have a role-playing game, there's going to be a movie, and of course they might come at the same idea but from different perspectives. So it's a worthwhile watch to be able to sort of really get an idea of what this is like, but it's just a different perspective. Your games master and your players, you can experience the setting from a slightly different angle. So I like that. And of course, if you actually have the art book itself, that brings in a different element as well. I believe that the art within this role-playing game is, in some instances, unique. So if you did actually have the art book, then of course this might be a welcome addition to your collection if you enjoy Simon's artwork, which of course is fantastic. So it does go through essentially what has happened to the world since, I think we're saying basically since the 1960s, and it does go into a lot of detail. We got the point of divergence. So at what point did this world deviate off an alternate timeline? We pointed out before there was a civil war across the United States, to which then new nations were formed. We have the involvement of the Neuronics in the war, and I watched to try and get a bit of an angle on this. I don't know if you've seen the movie Surrogates with Bruce Willis and, oh gosh, what's her name? Rosamund Pike. There's a sequence in Surrogates where they are conducting war with these surrogate bodies, and it's the same kind of idea, and I think that they visualized it really, really well in that particular movie. The difference being with this particular game is that, or setting I should say, is that a lot of the drones and the large ships have just been left, crashed in the landscape. So as you're driving around, you do get to see the remnants of the war, and we get to see an example here. They look actually like naval vessels, don't they, on a coastal road. So these Neurocasters, essentially what this is basically a form of VR. And it's got to a point where the VR is just so good that it's better than real life. There was a movie back in the 90s called, I think it was called The Lawnmower Man. Did you watch that one? And it kind of gave this idea, this fantastic idea of what VR was going to be like. But in our reality, VR's never really it's never really got there, has it? Yeah, graphics have got better and better in our video games and in our movies, but the whole idea of that fully immersive environment, no, it's still not quite there. We're not at holodeck levels yet. Well, in the Electric State, they managed to achieve it. And because of the Civil War, and because of this new technology, people have basically retreated into these, using these Neurocasters, into this virtual reality. And as such, they're forgetting about the real world around them. And that is what is fueling the collapse. And in fact, people are wasting away. They're not thinking about feeding themselves, and some of them are actually dying. And there's maybe some rumors that people's spirit may go actually into this virtual world. So these ideas of these zombies around the landscape, and these are essentially people plugged into the system, because once they're in, their consciousness and their focus is in that virtual world, and their body just stands there or sits there. Effectively, they become a zombie. There's some great imagery of this as you go through to try and give you an idea. Let me find these towers are actually what provide the system, and these wires might be linking through into homes. So you can imagine this is the internet gone to the extreme. And of course, we were talking about this on Tuesday. The internet is the big thing that happened at the end of the 1990s, isn't it? It's just in this alternate reality, it happened a lot sooner. So here we go. We've got all of these people, all got their Neurocasters on, all linked up, and in fact, they're linked to this mobile drone that is providing them with the connection. And it does talk about techno cults that form up because of course you've got to always have a good cult. And neurine addiction, because there's actually, it says here, the active chemical substance in neurotechnology is called neurine, made in laboratories all over the world. Excuse me. Pilots and other people who stay connected to drones for long periods of time tend to develop an addiction to neurine. This addiction can be satisfied by using the technology, but also by sniffing, injecting, or even smoking the neurine powder. So, yeah, there's definitely a dark side to this game. The difference is that your player characters, they have resisted entering into this alternate reality, and they're trying to live their lives, and as it said before, to achieve some kind of goal that might be personal to them, whilst everything around them is effectively collapsing. We get some details on what happened across the world. So even though this game is focused in what was California, you could, if you wanted to, set the game in other countries, and essentially it happened all across the world. I don't think anybody was invulnerable to this sweeping technology. So they might not have had a civil war, but certainly they got caught up in this new tech and found themselves lost to it. So, chapter 3, we have to create our traveller. And because this uses an adaptation of the Year Zero engine, we've kind of gone through this with quite a few games, haven't we? When we made our characters for Tales from the Loop, when we played Vaesen. So, quite familiar. But let's take a look at the different kinds of archetype, because it is slightly different. Now, let me find the character sheet at the back. So in fact, we do have an example one here. So we've only actually got 4 attributes: strength, agility, wits, and empathy. We have to create some tension between different travellers, but we'll come to that in a second. We've got health and hope. We have 1 talent. We have our dream and our flaw. So let's go and take a look in a little bit more detail. So our health, of course, is reduced when we take damage, but our hope is reduced by pushing rolls and traumatic events. When hope is reduced to 0, you have a breakdown and might suffer mental trauma. Your starting maximum hope equals your wits plus empathy. So, different talents. You start the game with 1 talent. We saw there. We got a whole list of different talents that we can potentially have. And I think with the actual characters themselves, they suggest different talents. Yes, so they give a selection of 3 different talents. You can roll for it or choose it depending on what you want. Let's take a look at some of these talents that might be useful. What do we have here? A backstabber. You get +2 dice to agility rolls to set up an ambush. Club fighter, +2 dice to close combat rolls when fighting any kind of blunt melee weapon. A drone operator, 2 dice to all rolls when controlling a drone. Again, because this is the Year Zero engine, you're basically going to get 6-sided dice. Depending on your attribute, depending on any talents, you get some bonuses. You're going to roll all of those dice, and you are after 6s for a success. So it's nice and easy. Again, it feels more like a game where it's the interdynamics with the different characters. I think that's the most important aspect to it. So as it says, when to roll. Generous rulebook over stop net text will indicate when to roll dice and what attribute to roll. However, GMs can always call for a roll in a situation where they feel warrants it. We got our modifiers. We can push the roll, so if you fail a roll or want to get more sixes, you can push the roll, grab all the dice that didn't show a 1 or a 6 and roll them again. So if you get multiple successes, you can show off, you do the task quickly, or you do it quietly. Whatever the bonus is, but essentially all you need is one success to be, well, successful. What else do we have? Personal stuff. Here we go. Your dream. So you choose a dream suggested by your archetype, or roll it up randomly, or come up with one of your own. See, again, I like the freedom that the game offers as far as when you're creating your character, get an idea of the types of motivations, their dreams that they might have. But if you're particularly creative and you want to come up with something unique, you can offer it up to the GM, see if they agree, and that can be your dream that you're going to try to achieve. So following your dream is important as it allows your traveller to develop after each game session. Essentially, if you're able to accomplish your dream during that session, then you are able to gain, I think it's additional talents and actually level up. But your flaw works in a similar way. It is a negative aspect of your character's personality, to which if you're able to overcome your flaw or to learn from it, then again, this allows you to better yourself. But I think that you end up having to select a new flaw, so you've always got a flaw as you go through, because we're always trying to improve, aren't we? You get to pick a favourite song. I think that's kind of cool. Again, with these games that are set within the 80s and the 90s, you can have a lot of fun with having a playlist going as you're around the table. I think that's good fun. And it gives some ideas of favourite 90s songs. Roger, do you have a favourite 90s song? I was just looking at some of these and realising that maybe I remember a little bit more than I'm saying. We got Wonderwall from Oasis, Zombie from the Cranberries, Bittersweet Symphony from the Verve, Dead Souls from 9 Inch Nails, and of course the totally famous Barbie Girl from Aqua. Okay, so we got some gear. You start the game with a bit of cash. Something by Madonna, you're saying? Yes, of course. I guess Madonna must be featured here, surely. No. Madonna does not make the list. We got Wannabe from the Spice Girls, though. So we have cash. Does talk about a Neurocaster. So our journey. The journey plan includes a personal goal for each traveller. Is typically decided by the GM when planning the journey, but it can also be done collaboratively. Your goal is often connected to the destination in some way, but can also relate to another traveller. And then personal threat. In addition to your goal, you have a personal threat on the journey, something or someone who will try to harm you or stop you from reaching your goal. Whole list of different items. Our vehicle, because of course our car or our vehicle is quite important. What kind of 1990s vehicle might our travellers use, Roger? What would you go for? I'm trying to think of what would be a popular car if it was in the UK. Ooh. See, I think a Ford Escort would be more of an 80s car. So maybe... I'm just going to stay with Ford because that's maybe a bit easier. A Ford Mondeo? Was that in the 90s? You see, again, you can tell that cars is not necessarily one of my best subjects. Tension. Tension lies at the heart of any narrative. So, travellers have relationships to each other, whether they just met or know each other well. So, we actually give... So each of the travellers have a tension score ranging from 0 to 2. 0 is no tension, 1 is suppressed or contained, and 2 is uncontained, strong emotions. And so you put in your tension levels depending on the different characters in the group. So there's linkage between everyone. We could have all met and be working together to go to this destination, but we need to basically tie the characters together a little bit. As it says, tension triangles. I thought this was an interesting element. Overcoming your flaws. So here we go. We get our different archetypes, and I like how at the top there are quotes, and these quotes are interesting. So here we go. I make art until someone dies. See, I am the world's first fully functioning homicidal artist. Jack Napier said that. And I guess you've just got to know who Jack Napier is. We got an artist, we got a criminal. A devotee? A doctor? This one's interesting. Drone pilot. So the drones, as you can see, are sort of robotic automatons. Very stylized. They're quite cool, and of course we'll see a lot more of these in the movie. So basically, your character is using a Neurocaster, and they could be anywhere in the world. But what the travellers are interacting with is the drone. And that's quite a different sort of setup. So in other words, you don't need any money. You don't need to... Well, I guess you kind of do sleep because your pilot needs to sleep. But they don't take damage in the same way. It's because essentially they're not human. It's a different sort of premise. I suppose it's like a droid, isn't it? But connected by a human pilot somewhere else in the world. We got the outsider, the runaway kid. And I don't know, is it just me? I'm trying to... Does this have a hint of Millie Bobby Brown? I'm not sure. Certainly not the haircut. Scientist. Back off, man. I'm a scientist, says Peter Venkman. A veteran. So those are the different types. Which one would you go for, Roger? Let's have a look at some of these dreams, because of course this will help us learn a little bit about how our characters fit into this world. So the artist. Find someone as important to me as my art. Turn the trauma of America into something beautiful. Get the recognition and accolades you deserve. I'm not sure you're going to be able to do that last one, given that everybody is pretty much zombified in using their neurocasters. So that'd be interesting then. So, Floor, you put on a show to hide your inner fears. You're bitter about not being more successful. That'd be interesting. Get the recognition and accolades you deserve whilst you're bitter about not being more successful. That could be an interesting dynamic. You're saying the outsider. You're going to go for that one, okay. So, find a true friend. Burn the corruption in this world. Get a normal life like everyone else. I think the normal life part maybe is a bit overdue now. You're not going to get that anymore. You don't trust anyone. You're restless and always want to keep moving. If told what to do, you always do the opposite. But you do have the option of getting a dog, so that's a bonus. Again, stunning artwork here. This is really, really good. So going into more of the actual game mechanics. I can definitely see that this is going to be a game where it's a bit more of the, the theatre of the mind style. We have taking damage, losing hope, traumatic events. We've got lots of quite serious injuries, broken nose, busted knee, gouged eye. Again, getting injured in this world, what doctors, what medical facilities would be available when everybody is, or the vast majority of people are going to be lost in this virtual reality. But the flip side, we've got the physical, but we also have the mental trauma to it. I don't know if we've seen. Certainly in, we were looking at the Call of Cthulhu, wasn't we? That, of course, was a lot about your character's sanity levels. I don't think we've seen mental trauma in a Free League game before. So this is, this feels new. But of course it does add that more mature sort of element to it because, dealing with, I guess, your surroundings, how dire they can possibly be, that it would definitely have an effect on you. What else do we have? We have hazards from fire and cold and disease. Again, these sort of images where people have just, car is just deserted. Again, it's a little bit, I suppose it is a bit Walking Dead. I suppose there is some sort of parallels to that, but as opposed to swarms of zombies, they're all just plugged into the machine. So this is the Neurocaster, and getting different kinds, being addicted to, is it bliss? Yes, accumulating bliss. But then finding ways to reduce it. Of course, if you accumulate too much, then effectively you are lost. You are lost to the virtual world, never wanting to come back. But there is an element of hacking the network going on in, so sometimes you do have to go on in, so you're basically dicing with losing yourself. So let me just check here. So, using neuronics causes you to accumulate points of bliss. Each time you fail a dice roll inside the neuroscape before pushing the roll, your bliss score increases by 1. Pushing the roll carries further risk, as it can reduce your hope. So when do you get lost? If your bliss score ever equals or exceeds your current hope, you're fully lost in the electric state, and you'll be unable to leave the neuroscape on your own, dying from hunger and thirst. So that's where if you go on in, you need somebody potentially to bring you on out. Yeah, so unless someone forcibly removes your neurocaster. So doing so will, however, immediately reduce your current hope to 0 and inflict a mental trauma. So that's quite powerful stuff. Where was it? Page 89. Hunger and thirst. You need to eat and drink something every day. Each day without food or water, make a strength roll. If you fail, take 1 point of damage. Hook up an IV and food tube. Well, I don't think that's the idea. See, you could have, this would be interesting, you could have some, situations where somebody goes on in and you have to go on in to try and get them out, but you could get lost into it just as much. Yeah, it's definitely an interesting idea. Well, here's these great big, look at the size of these war drones. This is going to be really impressive to see in the movie. And then again, I don't think these are the military drones, because they all just seem a bit too comedic, but you can get an idea. And this, again, watching the Surrogates movie, so where everyone's hooked up, they all stay at home and they hook up to these avatars, these robotic machines that walk around, their better selves. And that's how I kind of saw this. All these drones. But it kind of feels like it's a war zone. It's just they just look too happy. Maybe, it's a different kind of war. So interacting with avatars, drones, and here we go. So we do have our different drones: a civilian flyer drone, an elite trooper gaming drone, and Wally Wayne. So I get the impression, what's that other movie? Ready Player One? A little bit of that sort of idea. So people might be playing their first-person shooters, but actually moving a drone around in the real world. I think these are going to be a lot of fun. And again, just these amazing structures. What could they be? I feel like this is, everything in this world is all about this electric state, isn't it? This internet, this alternate America. We got some details on vehicles. And of course, fueling up, how far you can go. Again, if you run out of gas, you just get on out and go by foot and find the next available car, because nobody is potentially using them. Details on actually driving cars and using them as weapons. Aircraft. look at this. It's amazing. Chases, because if you're not the only group on the freeway, then maybe there are others. Gear and repairs. So this essentially now is going into, I suppose, the Games Master side of the rulebook. So planning the actual journey. So what does it say here? To prepare your journey, follow the steps below. Players can be involved in steps 1 to 7, steps 8 to 10 should be done by the GM alone. So choose the starting point, choose the destination, choose the route, decide the number of stops on the journey, decide each traveller's personal goal for the journey, decide each traveller's personal threat, describe the vehicle, and then create a personal threat countdown for each traveller. Create the stops on the journey, create a few minor encounters. And as it says, Into the Dust is an example. So we might actually take a look at that, because that's going to help us understand how the journeys play out. We have our length of journeys and our goals, threats. So we've got a guide as far as setting up the actual journey. So this is a little bit of the session 0 element. I imagine, though, you could probably get your characters done, set up the actual journey, and then do maybe the initial part, all as part of that session 0. As it says here, next put some 90s music and start role-playing. So here is a generator for different kinds of stops, terrain and population, types of communication, the size of the areas, what type of weather. So you can actually generate these up quite quickly. Electric State elements and 90s nostalgia elements. So as you're on the journey, as it says here, set the scene with the landscape and the weather, year and day, sights and smells. And then we got blocker examples, things that are going to stop our travellers from progressing. But again, random chart for us to be able to generate something there. Different conflicts. So a lot of the actual journey element can just be rolled up quite quickly and easily. So these are the little elements on the actual road trip, but eventually we get to our destination where there's going to be a major element for us to deal with. So again, a chart here for different locations. I mean, we've got a diner here, so maybe we have to stop off to go and get some gas. Maybe we got a flat tire and we are going to be in this diner, and this is where a little bit of narrative, maybe we hear a bit of a conversation, or maybe, hey, say somebody comes on in to hold up the diner, and this is where the story develops and we are participants in this hold up. But we find out that actually the guy who's maybe holding up this diner is actually he's trying to get some food because he's trying to help somebody else. So yeah, it could be an interesting little adventure point in our journey. I guess you could probably take a lot of influence from a lot of TV shows and just bring in just little scenes, rework them slightly into this setting. So that would be like the stop, as it says here. And then, of course, we get our fixed car maybe a couple of hours later, and we carry on our journey. So, yeah, different threats. Law enforcement, secret agents, gang members, crazed killers. We got cults. What was that that movie with Denzel Washington? Is it Book of Eli? He's kind of on a journey, isn't he? You could take elements from that. In fact, there are so many road trip movies that could be quite influential. Minor NPCs. Again, we've got some quirks to add to them. And so this actually is the journey that's included. So I should probably put the spoilers on that if you are a player, then you might want to stop watching now, because we're going to just take a little bit of a look here, just so we get an idea about how one of these journeys works. But for everyone else, let's continue. Book of Eli was great. It was, wasn't it? It was indeed. So let's see how they've worked this out. Okay, so you can see on the map we might be starting. Are we starting in San Francisco? Yep. Travelers are headed from San Francisco Memorial City into the Blackwell excursion zone. So it's all the way down this freeway. Wow, they're doing the whole journey all the way to here. They are traveling in a 1993 Buick Roadmaster Estate, which is a two-wheel drive car, which is roomy and heavy. So we've got our statistics for it. We got our layout for the personal goals and threats, and this is broken down by the different archetypes. So depending on which ones your players pick, you can then give them these goals and threats, and there's a countdown. So what did you said you wanted to be the outcast, didn't you? So you're on this journey, you're trying to get from San Francisco to the exclusion zone. So for you, being on the road is nothing new. It's been your lifestyle as long as you can remember. Normies might not see it, but San Francisco is falling apart. It's time to leave. So your goal, to leave town and maybe go to the Blackwell exclusion zone. So yeah, you know. But the threat, your old Neurine dealer, Carlos, wants you back in town. So basically, you've got a dealer who's after you, fixated with you, who would see him for some reason. So here's a bit of the countdown. So these are events that are going to happen during the course of the journey. So Carlos lets the outcast know he is nearby, either by placing an object in their room, or showing himself at a distance, or letting an NPC deliver a message. Carlos then corners the outcast and tries to make them come along with him back to the city. He first offers a spiked drink, which requiring a strength roll to avoid being knocked out for a stretch, then tries to persuade the traveller, and then he tries to force them into his car. And then finally, armed with a shotgun, Carlos seeks out the outcast. He's prepared to shoot anyone who prevents him from taking them with him. Wow, okay, so over the course of this road trip, it is for the GM to slot these in, the different stops. So that's quite interesting. And each archetype has got a different setup. For example, the criminal, we've got the California Highway Patrol. because they are being hunted by the law. But they're looking to try and get to the exclusion zone to start a new life. And of course, the highway patrol is trying to find them. We got some stats here for the various... Oh, there's Carlos. A brutal thug. Going through, starting the actual game. So we've got various encounters. So during the traveller's journey, you can add minor encounters along the way. One such encounter is listed below. But of course, we could roll up some of these encounters, couldn't we? So we've got some roadworks. Construction crews. That's cool. So we've got a visual to basically check out. Ah, okay. We've got a variety of different encounters that we can just drop on in as we go along. So this is the stack. This is very Ready Player One. And we have the drone. Okay, this is cool. And oh, this is the barn. Okay. This is cool. So actually, these are basically, these encounters are based on the artworks. That's quite cool. So these are just little stops. Well, no, I've got to use the right terminology here. These are encounters on the road that just get dropped on in at any point along this route as we're travelling along. But then we actually have our stop. So this stop is designed to be the first one on the journey. Can be used as a standalone one-shot or incorporated into another journey. The stop is meant to be placed in the suburbs of Stockton in the Central Valley of Pacifica. Okay, is there a map? Hang on a second, let's find... Oh gosh. Where's Stockton? So I guess if we had the large map out, we'd be able to find this relatively easily. I'm going to assume it's around here somewhere. So that's cool. So we actually have a full story here. We got a little bit of a town with some major buildings. So we could actually, our Carlos could possibly bump into our outcast at some point during this, or could have been at one of the encounters. We got a background on what is the situation. We got a countdown. So depending on how long our players stay in the area, certain things are going to occur. Goes through the various locations. We have our cast of NPCs. Okay, so it's just a couple of pages, isn't it? What's that? 169 to 180. About 10 pages, because here we go. We then have stop 2. And this is saying located in the Sierra Nevada mountains. So it can be relocated. So again, this is a great idea that you can put these stops at any point. But this has got to be in a mountainous region. This feels a little bit... I can imagine, you know how you pick up your missions when you're playing like the likes of Grand Theft Auto, as you're driving along. you stand in that town area, you meet a few characters, you do a few things, you finish it all up, you jump in your car, you move on to the next location. This is actually quite cool. We got another, and we got a third. And again, this is Death Valley. So isn't that near Nevada? So this must be closer to the end of their journey. Oh gosh, wow, we got lots of downed drones here, military elements. Haha, robotic dogs. Awesome. So there we go. Actually, yes, this is actually quite a cool concept. I like this. And again, it's framing it like a movie, like a TV series. So 3 major stops, but with multiple little encounters that can be dropped on in at any point. So it gives the players opportunity to do a little bit of role playing as they're sort of chatting in the car, that like idle chat, which could be hopefully for them trying to overcome whatever their weaknesses are, maybe building up a better bond with other characters because there might be some animosity to start off with, and then move on to maybe a little encounter, and then the encounter moves on to a major stop. And of course, as the games master, you can push the game to this stop. You know, you travel down the road for another 100 miles, and you come across this little suburb. I like this. This is cool. So this is solo rules. I will certainly have to. I want to read into this more because I think this is could be a lot of good fun. We've enjoyed playing solo games on the channel, haven't we? And I think this, you know, creatively could be very exciting. So again, lots of tables to roll up to get your encounters, behaviors. We like solo games, yes. And then ultimately, get to the end, we got our character sheet, we got our vehicle, and then it gives us some examples of some pre-made characters. So it's quite simple as far as the character sheet is concerned, isn't it? That's basically it. As I say, we finish off again with the same map of Pacifica, and of course a larger version, which I really do want to see now. We got Stockton. Was that where it was? So we're coming out of San Francisco to Stockton. I'm sure it said Stockton. Yes, pre-made characters sheets in the books are always useful, but this is actually is quite simple, so I don't think we'd have any problems. But again, you know, if you've never done it before, there we go, the suburbs of Stockton in the Central Valley of Pacifica. So our first stop is just here. We're just leaving San Francisco, going down the is that the 580? Yeah, into Stockton. This is cool. Actually, that'd be quite funny, wouldn't it? Because you get a group of players together and you say, okay, you've got to get from San Francisco to Los Angeles, and then they say, oh, well, you don't want to take that route. That route's always really bad. Hey, what about taking this one and then turning off here and then going 5 miles down the road here, and then there's a bit of a shortcut there, and getting the players arguing about what directions they want to take, because typically there's always somebody who knows the perfect route. So that could be a lot of fun. Or maybe you do the coast road and just enjoy the scenery. So there we go. That's a quick look through the Electric State from Free League Publishing. I like this. For me, it is a different kind of game, and I really enjoy it. It's not typical to the other games that we've taken a look at. I obviously want to sit down and spend more time reading through and maybe trying to put together my own journey, because I think that will help solidify it in my mind. Giving different sort of elements. I'm also going to be interested to see what kind of additional materials they release for the game in due course. You like it, says Rogue. Looks to be really fun. Yeah, but it's different, isn't it? Or it, as I say, it feels different to me because I've not experienced anything quite like it. I like the setting. The setting's cool. Could be a bit dark. Definitely, dark in nature in some aspects. It depends whether you want to lean in on that. I think also that once we see the movie, that's going to really help solidify the world in your mind, isn't it? You're going to get a good feel for it from that point onwards. And indeed, maybe some of the elements in the movie you could incorporate into the game as well. I also think that there are plenty of road trip TV shows, books, films, that you could take elements from those, put them into this world, and it would work just as well. So there's definitely lots of material that you can sort of take inspiration from. I definitely want to know more about this kind of drone. Why would you... What I want to know is, why create drones that look like this? That's what I want to know. That's my big question more than anything else. I can understand ones that look perfectly like humans. I can understand ones that are functional or for certain purposes. This, I don't understand it. Really don't. And that's why I need it answered. Anyway, so there we go. That was the Electric State. Now, we're going to be starting next week by continuing with Free League Publishing. And we will be taking a look at the first major adventure campaign for Dragonbane, Path of Glory, that I believe was released this week. So we looked at Dragonbane. In fact, we actually played some of the combat on the channel quite a few months ago and thoroughly enjoyed ourselves with it. So again, this is going to be interesting to basically see how an entire adventure campaign is laid out. Now, I believe that this is a campaign that was created back in the day with the original release of the Swedish version of the game. And of course, this has now been translated and has been updated for the new role set. So players who played the original version will get a kick out of this, and myself being a new player, I've got something incredible to discover. So that is what we are going to be looking at on Tuesday evening. Rogie, you're saying Defiance would be a good one to get ideas. Yes, Yes, that's another good call. See, there's plenty of good movies out there that you could actually help sort of inspire. And even just taking little elements, just a scene, just a little encounter. So yeah, maybe what we'll have to do is come back to this and maybe do some roll tables and see if we can create a little bit of a journey plan. I think that could be good fun. Okay then, so there we go. Thank you very much for joining us. Glad that you enjoyed looking through the book. Hope you have a fantastic weekend, and I look forward to seeing you all next week. But until then, bye for now.